What makes a great wrestling tag team? Well, for starters, they need good timing and chemistry, and they should be able to complement each other without one outshining the other. And in my opinion, that's really all there is to it. Sure, many of the best tandems over the years have had a lot in common. Similar build and in-ring style, matching gear, compatible personalities, shared goals, that sort of thing. But I find the real magic can come from those unexpected pairings, duos that make no sense on paper or that are seemingly formed just to create an inevitable breakup down the line, but somehow are able to thrive and remain embedded in the minds of fans forever. And this week, I'm gonna rank them, my picks for the top 8 best odd couples in wrestling history. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret if you haven't yet, and hit the bell icon so you're notified when all the new stuff drops. Now let's get odd. Number 8, Santino Marella and Beth Phoenix. Before the pairing of Dominic Mysterio and Rhea Ripley had us all feeling some kind of way, this power couple paved the path for those who like their ladies on the stronger side. During the summer of 2008, there were few flings quite as fierce as that between the glamazon Beth Phoenix and the bizarre Italian stereotype Santino Marella. After Phoenix asserted herself in an open challenge by Santino on Raw, things intensified the following week when an impromptu scuffle suddenly turned into...
Some sort of happening. I don't even know how to describe it.
I would not be surprised if at least one member of the creative team at this time thought that was just how it worked. Beth playing the straight woman to Santino's zany antics proved to be a hilarious combination and a good use of both wrestlers. I thought it was a brilliant piece of business when Glamorella beat Mickie James and Kofi Kingston at that year's SummerSlam to take both their Divas and Intercontinental titles respectively. Santino's second reign as champion was particularly inspiring as it gave us one of the greatest gimmicks of all time, the Honky Meter.
The Honky Donkey Man was Intercontinental Champion for a record 64 weeks. Santino Marella has already been Intercontinental Champion for 2 weeks. 6.71 weeks. 11 weeks.
Good God, I remember hoping that those crazy bastards would actually do it and have him break the record just to see how people would react. But we'd have to wait another 15 years or so for that to happen, as Santino's run only lasted about 12 weeks. But he did get to wrestle the Honky Donkey Man. The pairing didn't exactly end on the best note. Santino inexplicably became Santina Marella to win a Divas Battle Royal at WrestleMania 25, an idea so stupid that of course Vince McMahon gave it the okay. Anyway, Beth got pissed about it, then ended up losing a match to Marella the following month. But we'll never forget the laughs that Glamorella gave us beforehand. And let this be a lesson to some of you out there watching this. Sometimes being funny is all it takes. Number 7, David Flair and Crowbar. What's even better than an odd couple? An actual odd couple. Well, technically a trio. Being the son of one of the greatest of all time is a heavy burden, as David Flair learned in 1999. Put in high-profile situations while being virtually untrained, it was an unenviable way to break into the business. But by the end of that year, the Nature Boy's firstborn went a little crazy in kayfabe, snapping after witnessing his father get assaulted with a crowbar by DDP. At that year's Starrcade, Flair lost a crowbar on a pole match to Paige, only to be rescued by the debuting Daphne, perhaps the only David Flair superfan in existence. Despite their natural-born killer's vibe, the act was missing a crucial piece. Enter Devon Storm, journeyman wrestler and Maccabia Mania alum, who came into WCW as an unhinged gas station attendant named Crowbar. That reminds me, did they ever bring up the fact that a guy named Crowbar was teaming up with a guy who was obsessed with crowbars after they became part of his trauma? Or was that just another classic WCW oversight? Crowbar, the guy, not the weapon, would rescue Flair from attacks by Vampiro and friends, and proving that WCW had zero patience for this sort of thing, the two skyrocketed to the top of their tag division by winning the vacant titles in a tournament like a week or two later. Crowbar was the glue that held the whole thing together, which was fortunate since the other 2/3 of his group were woefully undertrained at best. But the team had the appeal of being fresh, irreverent, and unexpected during a time when WCW fans were begging for something interesting. At least these characters matched the chaotic nature of the show. Sadly, it was not meant to last. In the summer of 2000, David would turn on Crow and Daft to do a marriage angle with Stacy Keibler that ended up going nowhere. At least Crowbar and Daphne still got to have some fun. Number 6. Danny Doring and Amish Roadkill. When you think of unusual pairings in wrestling, it's hard not to be reminded of one of the most, well, extreme examples around. Danny Doring, a pretentious womanizer from Pepper Pike, Ohio, and Amish Roadkill, a big Amish guy who said chickens a lot.
Chickens. Chickens. Chickens.
That Paul Heyman, what a genius. The two began teaming up in late 1996, soon after graduating from Taz's House of Hardcore. Much like a young Ishmael Borg, Amish Roadkill was a gifted natural, and when paired with the more ground-based Doring, the pair soon grew into one of ECW's most popular mid-card acts during the company's most prominent years. They even worked alongside Doring's on-air girlfriend, Miss Congeniality, before she went on to become Lita in the WWF. After a seemingly endless feud against Nova and Chris Chetti, Doring and Roadkill would go out the final ECW Tag Champions after beating Little Guido and Tony Mamaluke a few months before the company's closure. Their success as a tandem didn't go far beyond ECW. Like many of the originals, they showed up on the earliest episodes of the revived WWE brand in 2006, but didn't stay long. Nevertheless, these two are a textbook example of opposites attracting in the best way possible. Number 5. William Regal and Friends. There are few in WWE over the decades who've been able to pull off a huge range of emotions quite like old Willie Riggs. A chilling, dastardly heel one week, comedy relief the next. Sometimes he'd pull off both in the same segment. A true utility player throughout his career, Regal paired up with lots of different people everywhere he worked, but most would agree that the baddie from Blackpool was at his best whenever his partners were his most opposite. Take for instance his WCW team with Bobby Eaton, Earl Robert Eaton as part of the Blue Bloods, a snobby Englishman trying to educate a good old boy from Alabama about things like tea party etiquette. The idea sells itself.
It's going to be the biggest day of your life. You're going to meet the Queen of England.
Hey, thanks for showing me your jewels.
I don't think so, no.
Then there was Regal's golden pairing with Tajiri while he served as the WWF commissioner in 2001. Though the two would go on to have matches together, the true magic came early on from their weekly backstage segments. It was hilarious to see them somehow communicate with each other while speaking different languages. And when Regal saw his assistant wrestle for the first time, he pulled off some award-winning body language. The two had great comedic timing and were a hit with the fans, despite the fact that the two didn't actually care much for each other in real life. And as proof that it ruined everything it touched, Regal would eventually turn heel as part of the Invasion angle, leading to a brief program between the two that nobody really wanted to see. Finally, we look at Regal's awesome run with Eugene a few years later. Given the task of supervising Raw GM Eric Bischoff's special nephew, Regal initially did everything he could to rid himself of his obligation. But despite having to fix Eugene's messes, the bond eventually grew, and Regal found himself developing a genuine care for the lad. When Triple H and Evolution spent weeks manipulating Eugene and taking advantage of his trusting nature, Regal was forced to intervene, leading to a rare babyface turn and one of the best promos he ever cut. The Eugene-Regal partnership continued past the Triple H feud. They won the World Tag Team Gold from La Resistance in November 2004 in a lovely feel-good moment, but a knee injury to Eugene derailed the run before its time. Still, let's give 3 cheers to Lord Regal for his terrific range and for making these pairings so enduring. We're halfway through. What do you think of these teams so far? Let me know in the comments section, and don't forget to post your favorites as well. Number 4. Cactus Jack and Mikey Whipwreck. By 1994, Mick Foley was at a crossroads in his career. WCW had suddenly become more family-friendly and Hulkified, compelling the man known as Cactus Jack to seek his fortune elsewhere. And though he didn't exactly find, fortune in the literal sense in ECW, he did get a lot of creative freedom, which led to this classic angle. Mikey Whipwreck was a scrappy underdog, basically a jobber who eventually started getting lucky and eking out victories over much stronger competition. Soon after he lost the ECW TV title, Whipwreck became an unlikely last-minute replacement for Terry Funk, who was Cactus Jack's partner in a tournament to crown new tag team champions. Somehow, with Captain Jack at the helm, the two overcame the odds and Public Enemy to win the belts. It was Jack's willingness to dish out pain, along with poor Mikey's willingness to receive it, that made the tandem a lot of fun to watch for the bloodthirsty ECW fans. The two would veer away from each other for a bit, but history would repeat repeat itself in late '95, when Mikey took on 2 Colt Scorpio for the TV and both tag team titles. In a shock, Cactus showed up to help Mikey win the match, helping himself to the other half of the tag belts in the process. By this point, Jack was working with Raven and was in the midst of a staunch anti-hardcore crusade, lauding the virtues of WCW and the WWF, a position Mikey couldn't tolerate as they eventually lost the belts again. At SummerSlam 96 in February, Wregret took a stand and walked— oh, good lord! Okay, I'm sorry. I know I've seen that one before, but geez, it's still hard to watch. At the Big Ass Extreme Bash, Cactus said goodbye to ECW by beating Wregret in a match where he was indeed forced to resort to hardcore tactics, allowing Mikey and ECW to prove their point even in a loss. Number 3. Booker T and Goldust. After a frustrating run as one of the also-rans of the Alliance in 2001 and losing a match to Edge over a Japanese shampoo commercial in 2002, Booker T was creatively adrift, a talented individual who seemed unable to truly break out in his new home. Shortly after WrestleMania 18, Raw owner Ric Flair decided to put Booker and the recently returned Goldust together, much to T's chagrin. After the supposed one-and-done, though, the Bizarre One continued to pursue Booker's friendship in an uproarious fashion.
I'm sorry for this elaborate disguise, but this is the only way I could get to talk to you. I don't want to join the NWO.
Well, then what you want?
Goldust wants Booker T to quit the NWO.
This stuff was great because at this point in his career, Goldust was a lot more generally eccentric and lovable and not nearly as creepy or sexually aggressive as he was in the mid-90s.
Man, what the hell are you doing here?
Okay, still a little creepy. Seriously, these bits with the two in those first few months were pure gold, pardon the pun. The movie reviews, the 7-Eleven sketch, the two dressing up for a lumberjack match, Goldie as Darth Vader, each of them showing a new and impeccably entertaining side of the Booker man. Booker had initially brushed Goldust off to try and gain membership to a bastardized version of the New World Order. But when he was unceremoniously booted from the group, who else was there by his side all along but Goldust? The pair reunited, and Goldust acted as a therapist of sorts for Booker, if therapy included impersonations and weird prop comedy. After several months of missing the bullseye, the two beat Chris Jericho and Christian for the Raw Tag Team titles at Armageddon 02. While the run was relatively short-lived, the extra layers that Booker added to his character helped form the connection he needed with the fans, propelling him to a world title match at WrestleMania 19, which we don't have to discuss here, thanks. Number 2. Kane and X-Pac. Look, we can talk about all of Kane's other popular tag teams with guys like the Hurricane, or Rob Van Dam, or Daniel Bryan, Team Hell No. Those were all great, and I will always laugh at those anger management skits, but I have to show love to the one that started it all for the Big Red Machine. After a rough 1998 that saw him lose, find, then re-lose his brother The Undertaker, Kane had been reduced to a corporate puppet controlled by the threat of institutionalization, further manipulated by his affection for China. On the other side of the ninth wonder of the world was Triple H, who ultimately betrayed X-Pac at WrestleMania 15 to join China and the corporation. With both men cast out from their respective circles, a tenuous friendship between Kane and X-Pac was born. The union proved fruitful almost immediately as they beat Owen Hart and Jeff Jarrett to win the WWF tag titles less than a week after they officially formed. Then came the character work, when Pac spent weeks trying to convince Kane to move past his previous traumas and trust the Kid. When Kane finally turned his back on his brother and the Big Show in favor of his little buddy, and when those two hugged it out, man, that shit got me right here. X-Pac and Kane dominated the tag scene for much of that spring and summer, winning the gold on 2 occasions. And though we never did get a green Kane, we did see the big guy finally throw away his little voice modulator doohickey to speak his first true words.
Suck it.
That was literally one of the top 10 moments of 1998, no question. Of all the sweeping character changes that Kane put up with for decades, it was this first foray into humanity that did the most good for him. By finally learning to trust someone besides his father or brother and developing what seemed to be a true friendship, it was a lesson not just for the character, but for the viewers as well, that even monsters can learn to care for others. Until X-Pac betrayed him and stole his girlfriend Tori, setting off a long and annoying feud that begot the term X-Pac Heat. So, you know, there was that. Before I reveal my tippy, topsy-turvy tandem, here are a few honorable mentions. Al Snow and Steve Blackman. As far as comedic straight men go, you can't make him much more rigid than Steve Blackman. But in early 2000, it was Al Snow's mission to link up with the Lethal Weapon and make him an entertaining son of a gun. By the way, always a great sign when creative gives you a storyline that tells you outright that you're not that interesting. Thus, Head Cheese was born, at least in Snow's twisted mind. Despite the surprising amount of effort that was put into these skits where Al would try to bring out a personality, the team didn't win much and also split pretty quickly. Yet Blackman viciously assaulting a cow, an alien, and a little man in a cheese suit are enough to leave a hell of a legacy. Dude Love and Stone Cold Steve Austin. By the spring of 1997, Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels were the WWF Tag Team Champions and also couldn't stand each other, but that feud was put on ice when HBK took time off for an injury. After weeks of asking to be Stone Cold's replacement partner and being soundly rejected, Mankind suddenly reverted to his lesser-known alter ego, Dude Love, to help fill the gap.
Steve-O, baby, it's me, Dude Love, and I am coming to save the day.
The Dudester, a teenage Mick Foley's idea of a handsome heartthrob, made his official debut on the July 14th edition of Raw, helping Austin win back the vacant titles from the Bulldog and Owen Hart. This is another short-lived entry due to Austin's neck injury the next month at SummerSlam, but it was very fun and memorable nonetheless. Shark Boy and New Jack. One was a certified gangsta with a vicious streak and a rap sheet a mile long, and the other was New Jack. It was the weekly pay-per-view era of TNA, and it was time for some Anarchy Alliance matches, basically lethal lottery rules. These two very different grapplers first teamed up in May of 2003, losing to the equally random team of Don Harris and Ron Killings. But despite earning more losses than wins, fans seemed to enjoy the antics between the two, as Shark Boy would try to help Jack embrace his childlike wonder, while New Jack would find ways to integrate Shark Boy's aesthetic into his own acts of violence. Though it only lasted for a few months, this bizarre partnership was a welcome slice of whimsy in the early days of total nonstop action. Randy Orton and Matt Riddle. Throughout WWE history, few are considered as untrustworthy as one Randall Keith Orton. I mean, for crying out loud, he is literally represented by a snake. But sometimes long-standing acts such as his have to step out of their comfort zones, which is what took place soon after WrestleMania 37 in 2021. That was when fun-loving grappler and walking pot reference Matt Riddle came up to Orton and suggested they form a tag team, an idea Orton had initially shot down, then reconsidered after Riddle beat him in a match that same night. Slowly but surely over the weeks, Randy began to warm up to Riddle, kind of like a grumpy old man who eventually learns to love a golden retriever he inherited. After a brief hiatus, Randy returned to Raw and abruptly ended Matt's hopes of resuming the team, but that rascally Riddle still saw value in their friendship, forcing the Viper to begrudgingly accept his assistance/meddling. It was the first time in a while fans got to see new layers added to babyface Randy Orton. It seemed like he didn't quite have the heart to outright reject Riddle, even though he still dropped him with an RKO for the lols. Despite everyone knowing from day one that Randy would eventually hit his friend with his finisher, that somehow didn't spell the end of RK Bro. In fact, they continued to thrive, winning the Raw tag titles twice over the next half year. Despite their respective in-ring styles and personalities being so far apart, or maybe because of it, the duo was very fun to watch. However, a back injury would sideline Orton for the next several months, forcing Riddle to carry the RK Bro flame on his own. But Matt himself would be released from WWE just 2 months before Randy's triumphant return at the 2023 Survivor Series, killing off any possible reunion plans for good. And my pick for the #1 best odd couple in pro wrestling history is Mankind and The Rock. With Mick Foley making his third appearance on this countdown via 3 different personalities, I guess you could say he's the odd couple king. There aren't too many moments from my early wrestling fandom as deeply seared into my brain as the I Quit match between The Rock and Mankind at the 1999 Royal Rumble. Aside from the usual punishment Foley had been regularly putting himself through, he also took nearly a dozen unprotected chair shots to the head in his bloody defeat. It was the barbaric peak of a rivalry that began in September, and at the time, you'd be crazy to imagine these two ever working as a tag team, much less a successful and enduring one. However, By the summer of '99, The Rock had gone full-fledged babyface, as he had become impossible for fans to boo as a heel. On an August episode of Raw, Shane McMahon stacked the deck against him and Mankind in separate instances, prompting Mrs. Foley's baby boy to offer up his assistance against their mutual enemies. The Rock agreed to team with Mankind once and only once to challenge The Undertaker and The Big Show for the tag team titles, which of course they won handily. The boys would soon lose them back, but Mankind was enamored with his newly found/imagined friendship with Rocky, going to great lengths to earn his approval. After regaining the belts, their partnership peaked on the September 27th episode of Raw with the infamous "This Is Your Life" segment.
Still like to bake bread, and you know your roles, right? Mr. Rock like to do something special with that whistle.
Oh no.
Poontang your ass on out of here.
The two had the crowd in the palm of their hands for nearly 30 uninterrupted and mostly ad-libbed minutes, an eager Mankind trotting out special guests from Rocky's past, and Yerpel the Clown, only for the Great One to verbally eviscerate all of them. It's such an iconic moment, you'd be forgiven for forgetting how the whole thing even ends. Despite going way past their allotted time, one of the longest segments in Raw history also became one of its highest rated ever. No doubt the sky-high rating helped minimize the heat that they took for going over, but let's be honest, segments like this are why WWE script their promos so tightly now. The pair remained allies throughout '99 and into 2000, when The Rock staged a walkout with the whole roster in protest of Mankind's firing. Just think, we were this close to having the World Rock Federation. Then finally in 2004, years after both men left the full-time world of wrestling, The Rock and The Sock would join forces once more to take on and lose to Evolution at WrestleMania 20. But man, did you see how good The Rock's goatee looked? The Rock and Mankind were originally brought together as violent adversaries, but wound up becoming a massively entertaining duo whose collective charisma couldn't be denied. If Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage were the mega powers for the golden era, then I think the Rock and Sock connection was its strung out, slightly off-kilter Attitude Era equivalent. When it comes to combined star power, chemistry, historical impact, fan interest, pretty much everything except the wrestling, I guess, no odd pairing can hold a candle to what The Rock and Mankind were able to do in the wake of one of the most brutal rivalries WWE ever had. That's why I consider Rock and Sock unquestionably the best odd couple in wrestling history. Now I know this list really ventured into the ha-ha side of odd couples, and there are a lot of serious tandems as well. Hey, Sheamus and Cesaro is one of my favorite teams from their era, but who else do you think belongs on this list? Let me know in the comments section below. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.